The procession was approaching. In the darkness, I could see that it wasn't something normal. Someone was dragging a cross with great difficulty. I couldn't see his face. But I understood that I shouldn't be there, that I shouldn't be seeing that. That the procession moving along that dark street didn't belong to anything alive. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this episode. Make yourselves comfortable here by my side. Find a spot and get comfortable with a good view. The procession of legends is about to begin. That's because today's a special episode. Because the stories go from the most intimate, from those ghosts that appear in our homes on a highway while we were waiting for a loved one or in a hospital. From there to legends that have been told for decades, for centuries, and that suddenly will make us witness that they exist. How would you feel if you suddenly met the legend from the story your family has told you all your life? If you suddenly discovered that your greatest fears are actually true, be careful and listen closely. Maybe tonight you will be the protagonists of Night Tales. I'll share something that happened to me in 2005 when I lived in Arroyo Negro, a small town in Calakmul, Campeche, very close to the border with Guatemala. Just so you know, it's a place where country borders disappear. In the jungle, you can walk for hours without really knowing which territory you're in. Recently, I heard a story on this very show about a cult in the mountains, in that same region between Quintana Roo and Campeche. And although at the time it seemed exaggerated to me, when I heard it, I couldn't help but recognize several details that were true. Strange encounters happen there. They're not always paranormal, sometimes just uncomfortable or even dangerous. Smugglers, foreigners, looting ruins, or jungle-dwelling groups. And yes, it's also true that there are many hidden Mayan ruins, the kind that the jungle swallowed up. You can't see them at first glance, but they're there. Foreigners know it, and that's why they come. At that time, this place was forgotten. We didn't have electricity or services, let alone hospitals. We only mattered during elections when they came for our votes. Hunting was our sole source of meat. Even if judged now, we had no other choice. My name is Raul, and this story has to do with my cousin Pepe. We went hunting in November 2005, even though our relatives always warned us that it was better not to go into the woods that month. That day we walked towards Tres Banderas, getting closer and closer to the border. Suddenly we saw something strange. Someone had strayed from the usual path and made a trail with a machete. It happened recently, it caught our attention, so we decided to follow that path to see where it led. That's when we found it, a ruin hidden among the undergrowth. It wasn't big or imposing, but it was real, like a small, very old pyramid, said Pepe. It looks like no one has looted this one yet. I, who have always been more cautious, told him we should leave, but he started insisting. What if we find something valuable? If the foreigners who come here take everything, why can't we? He told me. At 20, I had little and many needs, and though it's hard to admit now, I agreed. We moved dirt and stones however we could, using sticks in our hands until eventually one stone gave way. Underneath, there was a cavity, a hole just big enough for a person to fit through. Pepe, feeling overconfident, went in with a lamp. He spent more than half an hour in there. When he came out, he carried pots, green stones resembling jade, and what appeared to be half a human skull. I didn't want to touch that. I told him we should leave the remains, but he insisted on taking them. Curiously, the fully charged lamp went out just as he was inside. We did our best to cover the entrance and return to the village. That night, we stayed at his house. He put the things away and we didn't tell anyone. The next day, I went to see him and found him very sick. Fever, chills, as if he were burning up. I wondered if something bit him in the ruins. I wanted to tell his family, but he asked me not to. That early morning, everything became restless. Absolutely everything. He had a nightmare. He screamed for them to stop strangling him, but his voice wasn't his own. His wife says it was another voice, as if someone else was speaking through him. Then suddenly he got up from the bed, but not like a normal person, more like he was pulled upward. His eyes rolled back, moving oddly, and they say he started speaking in another language, one we didn't know. Those weren't his words, and his look at us wasn't either. His wife says the whole house felt cold, a cold that wasn't natural. When his dad entered the room, Pepe looked at him and laughed, but that smile wasn't human at all. Then he fainted, as if someone had turned off his body. Pepe wasn't sleeping anymore. He said that when he closed his eyes, he saw faces and strange figures calling his name. When he finally slept from exhaustion, he spoke in that strange voice, laughed alone, or begged for things we didn't understand. His wife found him one night staring at the corner of the room, murmuring something softly, like a prayer, as if someone was guiding him. The worst part is that what happened didn't seem like a movie possession. It was something else. Something that was hollowing him out from the inside, that was consuming him. He was full of holes, very skinny, gray. Literally, his skin was gray. He wasn't himself anymore. In the end, I had to confess what we had done. His family got very angry, of course, but more than that, they were scared. They consulted the village elders and were told we had to return everything, the pieces, the remains, all of it, and ask for forgiveness. That ruin was surely a tomb, and the souls were claiming what was theirs, what we had taken. So we did it. We all went. It took us hours. Pepe couldn't walk on his own, but we carried him, and I went in. I returned everything we had taken. We lit a candle, prayed, and then we left without looking back. Pepe was never the same again. Years went by. Little by little, he stopped speaking with that voice, stopped doing strange things. He hasn't snuck out at night anymore. He no longer attacked animals or spoke in strange ways, but he never laughed like he used to either, nor did he look at me the way he did when we were kids. He has a son, lives quietly, and is fine, but he's changed. It's as if the real Pepe stayed back there, inside those ruins. I still live here. I don't go so deep into the jungle anymore, and if I come across a ruin now, I'd rather turn back. It's not out of superstition or because I'm afraid. It's because I learned that there are things that don't belong to us, things we shouldn't touch. Hello, Relatos de la Noche community. I'm Manuel, and I've followed the program for over 5 years. I was always embarrassed to tell my story, but what I went through is something I haven't been able to forget. In 2016, I got together with my wife, Belen, and we were soon expecting twin girls. She's a petite woman, about 1.54 meters tall, and her pregnancy was very complicated. We'd been dating 5 years when we got pregnant, and even before that, she told me she saw things. Apparitions, shadows, people gone from this world. She said it at both our houses. Like you, Uriel, I thought it was just imagination or that she wanted to impress me. But after what I experienced on the 1st of November that year, I no longer doubt anything she told me. That day we went out trick-or-treating in costumes. It's like the Halloween candy given out in the United States, but in Mexico, we do it that day instead. Belen loves that date. It's her favorite. In fact, she once told me, if I ever have a child, I would love for them to be born in November. She still had 2 months before her due date, but as I mentioned, her pregnancy was high risk. The doctors had ordered her to have complete bed rest. But Belen isn't one to stay still. She's always been hardworking, a fighter. I used to work with my grandfather at a taco stand. I barely made 50 pesos a day, but she never reproached me for anything. That day we went out to give out candy. After half an hour, she started rubbing her stomach. She said the girls were hurting her badly, and then we realized she was bleeding a little. Her always thin body had swelled 5 or 6 times its size, and she felt her skin couldn't take it anymore. She had a checkup November 3rd. Just a routine thing. We went to Hospital de la Raza, and there was something strange. Although he no longer studied, his high school insurance remained active. We didn't understand it, but we were very grateful. Things weren't going well for me. We had just over 100 pesos, barely enough for bus fare. I thought they'd check her, we'd return and eat at home, but it didn't happen. After several hours of waiting, I got desperate. I went to the counter to ask about her, gave her name, and they told me, "Sir, we've been looking for you for over an hour." Because I was nervous, I kept going out to smoke, and each time I left, they called my name. I didn't hear them. They scolded me, then explained my wife was already 4 centimeters dilated. Her pains on November 1st were contractions, and they were preparing her for a C-section, urgent. Her skin couldn't take it anymore, and her uterus was being crushed. I stood there unsure what to do. With no phone credit, I couldn't tell anyone. I just stood there waiting. Until a doctor came up to me. He took me to a small office and told me very directly, "Look, your wife and your babies are in very bad shape. We can't save all 3. You have to decide who to save." He said that and gave me a paper. Think about it. I'm going to leave you alone for a moment. The doctor left. There were 2 desks, one with a man filling out papers, and the other where I was, standing with the sheet. My hands were shaking. I was about to sign when I heard heels approaching. I didn't look up, but the person stopped in front of me and asked me, "Are you Belen's husband?" I told him yes. He reached out his hand. His hand was soft. When I saw her, I realized she was very tall. Maybe because of the red heels. Fair-skinned with a delicate face, curly reddish hair, and light-colored eyes. She was wearing a white uniform and a red knitted sweater. She told me her name, Iratzio, and then she said to me, "Don't worry, you don't need to sign anything. I just finished operating on your wife. She and the girls are fine. They're very weak, but they're okay. Your wife lost a lot of blood. Her womb was damaged, but she's alive. One baby was born unresponsive, but after I intervened, she revived. She's in intensive care, but she's already breathing." I didn't know whether to cry, to laugh, or to kneel down. I just felt grateful. By the time my mom and grandma arrived, it was already night. I told them everything. They urged me to rest, but I refused. I didn't want to leave them alone, but they convinced me. The next day, my grandmother, who has a clothing stall, gave me a very nice outfit to take to the doctor who had saved my family. I went back to the hospital. I asked for Dr. Iratzio. No one knew her. I described her in detail. During the morning shift, they told me they didn't think she worked there. They suggested I ask in the afternoon. I came back at night and gave the description again. One of the workers just looked at me strangely and said, "Oh, sir, you were really lucky. Because that person you saw usually doesn't save anyone." She takes them away. I didn't understand, but I left very upset. Before I left, the lady stopped me and said, "Son, I know you didn't understand. That woman wasn't a living person. Maybe she was an angel, maybe La Planchada. But that they performed a miracle for you, they did. So you thank God." Last year, on my daughter's 8th birthday, they asked me how they were born. I told them the story. I had never talked about it with Belen. When I finished, she looked at me and said, "No female doctor operated on me. I heard voices, I saw movement, but they were doctors and interns. Although, yes, I did see a woman. I did see the red high heels. She touched my forehead just when I was about to faint. She told me, don't worry, it's almost over." They handed me one of the girls, but she wasn't breathing until that woman gave her a little pat on the back and she cried. No one else saw that woman, only us. Maybe that story sounds exaggerated or too unbelievable, but I was there. I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. A loving greeting to Belen, Naomi, and Nicole, the protagonists of this miracle. They're here for a reason. Something big is coming. Ashore, sending a big hug to you and the entire Relatos de la Noche community. My name isn't important for this story. In fact, I'd prefer to remain anonymous, please. I couldn't visit my hometown this Holy Thursday, Taco de Alarcón Guerrero. Seriously, if you ever get the chance to go, don't miss it. Everywhere you look is beautiful. It's people, food, and landscapes. That said, with all the pain in my heart, I have to tell you that because of organized crime, now we all have to be extremely careful, especially at night. And not just in Guerrero, but anywhere we go. Yesterday, my brother visited me at my current place. During our conversation, we discussed the procession of the Christ, held every Holy Thursday in Taxco, the week's longest and heaviest. He told me that at one point, when some images were just starting to come out, there was a commotion, people shouting, "Run, run, run." They didn't know why, but they ran. Luckily, it didn't get any worse. There was a gas leak at a food stand, and the frightened owner alerted everyone. My brother laughed as he told me about it, since it was just a scare. But I, community, couldn't help but relive the most terrifying Holy Thursday night of my life. Some might not think it's so bad, but for me, it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. Honestly, I don't know why I forgot it until now. I guess the brain tries to protect you by erasing the worst parts. But anyway, about 12 years ago on Holy Thursday, there really was a big chase. There were strange signs from early on. The Christ from the Guadalupe neighborhood didn't want to come out. He got really heavy and they couldn't take him out. I should clarify that normally, about 80 images of Christ attend that night. Besides the penitents who carry thorns, which weigh about 40 kilos, those who whip themselves, and those who drag chains. You can look it up on YouTube. The number of people who participate is impressive. But like I said, that year, the Christ of Guadalupe didn't come out and the atmosphere felt very, very strange. That feeling when you sense something bad is coming, even if you can't explain why. That was the first time they let me go down to the town with my boyfriend at the time, whom I'll call Pedro. We always went as a family, but that year, I was allowed to go if we met again at the Zocalo. From there, we'd continue the procession with the Christ of Cazahuetes, where I'm from. Pedro suggested we go to La Garita to watch the procession and join in when our Christ passed by. We were shouting in front of the former convent when suddenly everyone started running, screaming desperately, "They're coming! They're coming! Run!" It was an incredible roar, like thousands of bulls coming down from the mountain. People started running in all directions. There were many injured, broken images, and that happened 3 times. We didn't know what was happening, only that we had to run. They said that hitmen were looking for someone, that they had mixed in with the crowd. Although later the mayor came out and said it was all because of a transformer explosion. The truth is, that night we lost our minds. Pedro lost his cell phone and his wallet. I didn't know what happened to my purse and couldn't contact my family. We decided to walk to my house. On the way, we saw overturned stalls, people fainting, children and adults crying. There were no taxis or minibuses. Everything was chaos. When we got to the Guadalupe neighborhood, we knocked on several doors to ask for a phone, but no one opened. And I understand. We were all afraid. A lady peeked out from her house and gave us a bread roll. She told me to chew it and throw it on the ground. To get rid of the fright. "Be very careful, young people," she told us. "I can't let you pass. I hope God goes with you. Tonight is not a good night." We went up to the church. People started saying that the Christ of Guadalupe was crying. I never imagined hearing something like that. It was so scary we decided to keep walking instead of going in. We were heading to Cazoetti's. From then on, the town was deserted. Not even dogs or cats on the street. Houses were closed, lights were off. It was a ghostly scene. During one climb, we stopped to rest. Pedro told me, "Hey, did you see the nun who's walking over here? We should wait for her. The more people go, the better." In the distance, I did see the figure of a nun about 100 meters away. We thought about waiting for her, but suddenly all the dogs from the neighborhoods above started barking and howling in a very strange way, as if they were scared. Then we heard a horse trotting. We pulled over, waiting to see it go by, but the horse never appeared. Only the sound passed, as if it was going down the stairs. The nun we had seen disappeared. Suddenly, Pedro grabbed my arm. "Let's go now. We're almost there," he told me. We kept walking, trembling with fear, until we reached the viewpoint. And there, again, we saw her, the nun, very close to us. Her face was indescribable. It was burned and her teeth were black, appearing rotten. The veil fell to the floor, and as soon as she touched it, she let out a scream that almost deafened us. We ran with all our strength, but not only, she was coming behind us at the same spot where we had seen her for the first time, but she wasn't coming alone. From the same spot where we had seen her for the first time, 3 other figures were running just like her, fast, wild, like runaway horses. I was crying. Pedro was holding me while we prayed as best we could. Each Hail Mary was harder to say. We felt like we were running out of air. And when we prayed together, the footsteps started to move away. We heard laughter getting farther and farther away. Thank God a little beetle was coming up the street, a small car, a Volkswagen. It was one of our neighbors. He picked us up and asked why we had walked up, that it was dangerous, that we should have waited with the Christ. He called my dad. He said he was at the Zocalo accompanying the procession. He dropped us off near the Cazoetti's Health Center, and I waited for my family there. When they arrived, I hugged them, my soul shattered. I carried my little brother. In his innocence, he said to me, Look, brother, here come the nuns. They want to play with me. My blood ran cold. Pedro squeezed my back. Don't wait. If they come, let's go now. When we got to my house, I ran to the bathroom to throw up. But what I threw up wasn't normal. It was black, like clotted blood. My family said that the next day they were going to cure me of the fright, that it was necessary. That's how it was. They smeared me, as they say. They wrapped me in a blanket under the midday sun. I couldn't see anything. I was falling asleep when I felt something climb on top of me. I thought it was the man who was working on me, but it wasn't. A nauseating smell hit me, a smell I recognized from the night before, from when I saw the nun. He spoke to me in my ear. I swear I could hear them say the following to me. We're going to silence you one day, you hear? After that, I remember nothing else. I'm not sure if I fell asleep or fainted. All I know is that my brother's situation made me remember everything. The fear came back to me. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope nothing happens, but if something ever does, I promise I'll write to you again. Have a good night. Thank you for still being here, for staying with us up to this point in the episode. I always remember there are two types of people who listen to Relatos de la Noche. Those who already know this space and feel it as their own, and those who are just arriving, driven by curiosity or by a recommendation. And honestly, not all the newcomers stay. Many are overcome by fear or simply don't connect with this kind of stories. But those who manage to stay until this point do so because something inside them calls them. Because even if they don't say it out loud, maybe they've already experienced something paranormal, something they still don't know how to explain or how to talk about. That's what's special about this community. Every new person who arrives can bring with them a story, a memory, an experience they haven't shared yet. That's what matters most to us. Knowing that out there are many more stories waiting to be told. Personal stories, stories about families, friends, places we've been to at some point. Stories that sleep in the memory of our towns, our homes, our workplaces, waiting to come out. And here, we will continue week after week giving them a voice because there is still much left to tell. Tonight isn't over yet, so the break is over. We continue. Hello, Uriel and the Relatos de la Noche community. My name is Allison. My story is short, but I believe it belongs here. You see, I currently live in Mexicali, although I'm originally from Tijuana, in the north of Mexico, in the northwest corner of the map. I've rented several apartments and just moved into a new one. In my last apartment, I never encountered anything strange or paranormal. In fact, it was the opposite. It was an extremely quiet place, but something happened during the last week before I moved out. Like I said, I had never felt anything out of the ordinary, but those last few days were, at the very least, strange. It wasn't for any particular reason. It wasn't something I could point out or touch, but it just felt like when someone has a fight in a place, or they're about to fight, or someone cries a lot, and you can feel, as they say, that the air is so heavy, you could almost cut it. That's how I felt. I also started to feel a strange heaviness on my back, like someone was always watching me. I usually go to bed late, and that night was no exception. I went to bed around 12:30. But around 1:30 in the morning, I was woken up by the sound of several cats meowing. They weren't normal meows, they were desperate, as if something was terrifying them. At first I ignored them. Hearing cats here isn't unusual. I got up half asleep to use the bathroom, but once I was there, from the window right behind me, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A woman was crying, but it wasn't just simple crying. It was a deep wail full of sadness, of pain. It felt like it pierced right through your skin. Unsure what to do, I left the bathroom light on and ran to my room. My little dog was already awake, waiting for me and trembling, with her fur standing on end, staring intently at the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, pressed against the wall, unable to move. The wailing persisted outside, sounding as if it was right in front of my house. The cats kept meowing. Even though I'm really scared, I've always been fascinated by the paranormal. That night, I didn't even dare to touch the floor with my feet. Fear had me trapped. At some point, without realizing it, sleep overcame me. Full of fear sitting, I started to doze off. At about 2:30, my little dog suddenly got up and barked loudly, looking again at my bedroom door. They say animals see things we don't, and I do believe that. It was very cold in the room, and there was something else. I don't know how I'm going to explain it, but it was filled with an inexplicable sadness, a sadness I felt deeply inside. I had a strange feeling. It wasn't anxiety, I know that feeling. I was certain something bad was about to happen. The cries faded, and now more tired, I fell asleep again. Deep down, though I was almost ashamed to think, accept, or say it out loud, I knew that what I heard is what we here in Mexico know as La Llorona. I also understood from that moment that it was a bad omen, and I wasn't wrong. 2 days later, I was in a serious car accident. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before. I've always been very careful when driving, but that day, out of nowhere, while I was stopped at a traffic light, someone crashed right into me. Although the impact was strong, luckily I'm okay. And somehow I was ready, waiting for something like that to happen. I was always looking around everywhere, even there, when I wasn't even moving. Maybe that's why I was able to brace myself. I tensed my body so the impact wouldn't be as bad as everyone says it should have been, especially when I saw my car. So this is my story, everyone. If you don't want to see it as a horror story, take it as a lesson I learned and want to share with you. If you ever hear her La Llorona, be careful. Because hearing her is just the start of the story. Nothing good follows after hearing her wail. Thank you for reading me. Have a very good and peaceful night. Hello, Relatos de la Noche team. I'm Natalie and a big fan of your podcast. Thank you for creating a space where those of us who have gone through difficult, unexplainable things can find understanding and sometimes even answers. I'm writing to tell you about an experience I had in November of last year, right at one of the most vulnerable and distressing moments of my life. They found a cyst on my ovary, and we still didn't know if it was malignant. The uncertainty had me trapped in a mix of fear and helplessness. My mind was full of dark thoughts, and my body felt the weight of something I didn't know how to face. That's when strange things started happening in my house. The walls would fill with flies, about 30 or more at a time. We killed them, but they kept coming back again and again. I'm not sure if it was a physical sign of what I felt inside, but everything began when my body was struggling. I finally had surgery. The cyst turned out to be malignant, but luckily the surgery was enough for me to be okay. Even so, I was still weak, recovering, processing everything. and it was exactly 15 days after the surgery when a call came from Tijuana. One of my mom's older sisters, my aunt, was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and doctors had already given up on her. My mom traveled 2 days later to say goodbye while my boyfriend Mario stayed to care for me. That night it was raining. It was a steady rain, gentle but persistent. At about 9, I heard someone knock on the gate. It was a familiar knock, almost as if I knew who it was. I asked Mario if he heard it, but he said no. We ignored it, maybe waiting for them to knock again to be sure that there really was someone outside. We watched something on television and fell asleep quickly, maybe because we were tired or because of the emotional weight of the moment. I fell asleep early, but it must have been just around 11 when in the early morning, a sound woke me up. I opened my eyes and saw a shadow, a silhouette standing in front of my bedroom window, raising its hand, tapping the glass with a tick, tapping from the inside. Half asleep, I thought I was imagining it, that it was just Mario, until I clearly heard him flush the toilet. I saw that the living room light was on. I quickly turned to him, then back to the window, but the shadow was already gone. I didn't have time to react. I was so tired I couldn't even tell Mario what I'd seen. In the dream, I was lying down and someone posing as Mario was on top of me, seemingly trying to kiss me. I didn't see his face, but I did see his arms. They were very thin, very wrinkled, a very dark color, like skin that wasn't from this world. Something inside me knew it wasn't him, that it wasn't him. I woke up hours later, confused and unsure if it had been a dream. I checked my phone. I had a message from my mom. My aunt had passed away the night before, exactly at 11. I haven't been able to forget that night. Some have told me it was a succubus, others that it was death warning me, and others believe that because of the emotional state I was in, I sensed something not from this plane. That night is etched in my memory as one of the strangest and darkest I've experienced. Thank you for listening to me, for providing this space, and for allowing us to share what we can't tell just anywhere. I send you all a big hug. A few years ago, in Michoacan, something happened to my dad and me that I want to share. In the tiny town of Iratzio. It's a rural town hidden in the hills, where nearly everyone knows each other. It was nearly midnight on Friday. I waited alone at the bus stop for my dad to return from work. I clearly remember no cars passed by. The road was completely empty. You could only hear the wind moving the trees. You couldn't even see the distant lights of a car. Nothing. Then an older lady arrived, walking slowly. When she saw me, she stared. "My son," she said to me in a soft voice, "you're too young to be here alone at this hour. This place is haunted and it's scary." I replied that I was just waiting for my dad, who was coming on the next bus. The lady looked at me for a moment, then left without saying anything else, not even saying goodnight. Only about 5 minutes had passed when I saw a bus stop in front of me on the other side of the street. But something seemed strange to me. No one got off except for a woman. She was wearing a long white dress that covered her whole body down to her feet. I couldn't see her face. She had a shawl the same color as the dress. She just walked slowly and stopped under a tree right in front of me on the other side of the street. I couldn't see her face, but I noticed through the shawl that she turned her head toward me, as if she was looking at me. I felt a chill. I was scared, but tried to ignore her. I didn't want to admit it. Luckily, right away, I saw the lights of another bus coming. This time, it was my dad's bus, and he got off with several other passengers. Seeing him, I sighed in relief. We headed home, and on the way, I told him what had happened, but he didn't believe me. He told me it was probably just some lady who was going to visit someone around there, and I decided not to insist. We walked down a lonely street near my house with just one lamp lit at the end. I paid attention. Under that light was a figure I recognized, the same lady in white. It seemed like she was turning to look at us, as if she were waiting for us, but then she turned around and kept walking in the same direction we were going. The lady walked ahead of us, as if she wanted to show us the way. We walked behind her. She was going so slowly that we soon caught up to her until we were just a few meters away, but she did something strange. I felt my body go cold, as if it were chilly, though it wasn't. My dad stopped abruptly, grabbed my arm, and said, "Don't move, wait, look. Look at the feet." At first, I didn't understand what my dad meant, but then I paid attention. Because of the wind, suddenly the dress would move. And then you could see that this lady, that woman so close to us, wasn't walking. She had no feet. It seemed like she didn't even have legs under her dress. I swear to you, everyone, if my dad hadn't been holding my arm, I would have fallen. I felt like my legs were giving out. I imagine that's what it feels like when you're about to faint. We stood there until that woman walked further ahead, until she disappeared into the darkness, and we couldn't see her anymore. Then we started walking slowly without saying a word. We walked faster and faster until suddenly we started running. We both ran until we got to the house. We couldn't sleep. My dad dreamed about her all night, just standing in front of the house as if she wanted to look inside. All night, exactly the same. He'd wake from fear, fall asleep, and dream of her again. The next day, we told my mom and my grandma. They looked at us worried, especially my grandma. She listened to us very seriously. She knew what it was. "You were lucky, very lucky," she told us. She explained to us that in other towns in the area, this woman is well known. They say she always gets off a yellow truck, exactly at midnight. Numerous men have followed her into the woods and never returned. Those who return are changed. Some say that when they follow her, just before reaching the top of the hill, she lifts her dress and turns around to show that she's floating. And when they want to go back, when they get scared and are ready to run down, they see her appear behind them with a long, deformed face like a horse. They say it's a legend, but what I saw with my dad, that I can swear is true. We're not the only ones who've seen her lately. Many in Iratzio are already afraid to go out, or even to step outside when the clock strikes midnight.